Wake up from a daydream, feel your neurons ignite. Levitate your body, thoughts and limbs reunite. So come on, come on, come on, rock a two-step, shake them bones. So come on, come on, come on, taste the rhythm on your tongue. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold, gold. Get down from that high horse, ride this feeling with us. Wear it like a crown till sunshine fades into dusk.
Ciao Alberto, buongiorno, come stai?
Come on, come on, come on, rock a two-step, shake them bones. So come on, come on, come on, taste the rhythm on your tongue. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold, gold. I say the lights are changing, I say the lights are changing. I hear music playing, I hear it playing in my mind. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold, gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold, gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold.
Buongiorno a tutti,
Good morning.
buongiorno ai nostri ospiti,
to our
buongiorno ai
guests,
relatori
to
e
the
buongiorno al pubblico.
speakers, and to the audience.
Un pubblico che vedo numeroso, in realtà non vi vedo. Questo è un grande limite umano di questi momenti che stiamo vivendo, ma mi correggo, so essere numeroso perché a monitor appare il numero di quanti sono collegati. Quindi prima di iniziare, scusatemi, un'informazione per i nostri ospiti che ci seguono fuori dall'Italia. Questo evento, poi lo vedremo, è organizzato da ENAIP e da EVTA. EVTA all'interno della nostra fiera di Job Orienta sta garantendo
Job Orienta exhibition. It is ensuring connections and relations with all of our European partners. Because this exhibition is the most important one in Italy as regards education, training, and employment. And starting from this year, it's decided to be Europe-wide. And this is a task that has been given to EVTA. Cari amici internazionali che ci seguite, vi informo che potete anche ascoltare la conferenza in lingua inglese. So, prior to introducing our guests, I would like to give you the context, an overview. This is fundamental for this event. Our intent, EVTA and ENAIP, and EVTA is the European Association for Vocational Training, is to think of the future scenarios in the world of labor, society, education, training, and enterprises. And we have to also think of this in Europe, because we are in Europe. And the role of Europe is key, not just for the economy, but also for society. So, this is the background of this event. There's a document. In September last year, our chair of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, published the State of the Union document to tell us the guidance of Europe for the upcoming years. All of this is well known, but we have to think of it. For sure, the intention of the European Commission is very clear. They want the European Commission to be the driver of transformative and sustainable growth, so that Europe has a global platform to be the leader in society, the environment, economy, and geopolitics. I mean, these are words, but we need facts. And we do have facts, programs, plans, projects, and money as a result of all of this. So essentially, what do we want? We want environmental neutrality by 2050 and a strong process of digitalization. We want Europe to be greener, more digital, and more resilient. The European Commission will be focused on these aspects. So protect human life, that's fundamental right now. Strengthen the building blocks of the European Green Deal, lead digital transformation, exploited best the single market, and have different relations with the surrounding countries. The framework in which we operate has been well known for a long time. It's one of change, broad change, technological change, environmental change, demographic change, to eliminate social inequalities, because we know that in the current crisis we are having a crisis that has symmetric origins with asymmetric effects. I mean, the effects of this pandemic right now differ depending upon population groups. They are different in different geographies. And this is important. We have to bear this in mind. And then urbanization. That's an equally important aspect to be mindful of. Now, I'm Giorgio Sbrissa, and here I represent my organization, EMPL, and I'm also chair of EVTA. EVTA is the European Vocational Training Association. It's one of the largest European associations for vocational training.
ENAIP, you've seen the video, so you know what it does. For vocational training, I call it the main Italian player right now. We are talking about 20,000 youngsters trained every year and about 30,000 adults who follow our training activities. So 1,500 employees in all, in about 100 vocational training centers across Italy. Prior to moving on to the presentation of EVTA, and there's going to be a video, I'd like to introduce our guests. So, Roberto Rossini. Roberto Rossini is the chair of ACLI, i.e. the Italian Christian Workers Associations. This is one of the main domestic associations with about 1 million members, 929,50,000. And in Italy, we're talking about 8,000 contact centers reaching out to citizens. ACLI has services, they're well known, including tax services, as well as help for the sports associations. And they also deliver training through ENIP. Roberto is the chair of this large network. He's been chair since 2016. He's strongly committed personally as well, and he works in the social and political sphere. And then we have with us today Chiara Riondino. Chiara Riondino is head of Unit Vocational Education and Training, Apprenticeship and Adult Learning of DG Employment of the European Commission for Social Affairs and Inclusion. Her professional background is vital. She dealt with these areas, but as she will be telling us later on, she also worked in the Commission as regards all of the European pillars. And she also worked for the Ministry of Economy and Finance. Together with us, we also have Francesco Mondora. Francesco calls himself one who deals with the people and the world in a context of regeneration. He has been and still is director of companies, former startups, amazing, successful startups. And in particular, he deals with information technology. He's here because he is one of the many new initiatives of the entrepreneurial world. He's young. You will listen to his words later on. He is a representative of a new way of doing business, and most especially a new way of, how shall I say, organizing work within an enterprise. And finally, we have our Italian ambassador of European Vocational Skills Week, DEMETRIO ALBERTINI, very well known, great soccer player. And besides that, DEMETRIO plays key roles. He's committed in the Soccer Federation, deputy chair, and he's socially committed fantastically. So he helps the youngsters as part of training, and that is why he has an important role. Like I said, Italian ambassador, European Vocational Skills Week. And he's committed across the board all year round, not during the Vocational Skills Week only. Now, we have a very short video to present EVTA, and then we can kick off the event. Enjoy the video.
Bene, siamo tornati.
Okay, we are back. You've seen the video. Couple of words on it so that I can introduce myself better. EVTA, like I said a moment ago, is a European association. It has a task, i.e., to do advisory, lobbying, and good policies for good training together with other training entities within a framework of competitiveness as well as inclusion, as we call it. EVTA is one of those associations that, amongst other things, focused on excellence centers. And in Europe, it is a historical association because it was established back in the 90s. It has several members and many projects. I'm Giorgio Sbrissa, like I said, and I'm chair of EVTA. So we can start right now, without any further ado, with Roberto Rossini. Hi, Roberto, welcome. It's a great pleasure for me to have my president here. We have many things in common. Some are beautiful, others problematic because managing such a large association is not always so easy. And we also share black swans because with Roberto, as we will see later on, we are passionate for black swans. Black swans are, a representation of how our myths change, because it refers to a book written by a mathematician, philosopher from Lebanon, Aleppo, who tells us very simply that when the English reached Australia, they found out one thing, that swans were not white. There were also black ones. So hundreds of years of beliefs in a blink of an eye were disrupted, which is what is happening right now, Roberto. So, before starting, I presented you, but not immediately. So I'd like to make a change in the agenda. First of all, now and not at the end, I would like to thank all of those who make these events possible, because at times we forget them. ENAIP, as well as EVTA, we've been committed with 12 events in Job Orienta, 2 institutional ones, including this one tomorrow, very important one, on the theme of women, as a theme of STEM, which is a term used for the university, but it should also be used for vocational training. So thank you, ENAIP, and I'd like to thank also all of those who, doing their job each and every day, allow the others to find time to make these events. I'd like to thank communication, operations, human resources, the admin people, and all of the corporate functions for making this event possible. A word for a dear friend of mine who's very committed in this organization, Antonello Vedovato of Edu Life. Together with him, we've shared the leitmotif. We've refocused on people, because people are important, and also in terms of educating people to a well-informed choice. This is the foundation of job. And this is the guiding principle for all of us and for all of our events as part of this important exhibition. And last but not least, we are living at the time of coronavirus. I'd like to thank 2 persons, one who is at home with a fever. So she's in company of this virus. She's the head of General Affairs, Serena. So, having said that, Roberto, yesterday text, a bulky text, 92 pages, came out. What am I talking about? The MIT, the Boston MIT, ended a piece of research on the future of work. I'm summarizing it in a nutshell. Since 2013, we've been worried that machines would replace men. Machines have an advantage compared to the learning curve of people, because the learning curve of machines is exponential, that of humans is linear, and this generates a huge gap between us, humans, and machines. This document says, yes, but it is not true. Machines are not replacing humans. But the document also tells us one more thing, i.e. that in this process, in any case, great social inequalities have been generated. Those who are closer to machines earn more, and the other way around. Those who are more far away from machines earn less. When I talk about symmetric effects, I'm referring to this. Automation polarizes salaries, and this means that, alas, this transition needs to be managed. And this is up to politicians, not up to technicians or to the digital. It's up to policymakers. They have to give guidance on this. I believe that this is fundamental for us. I mean, it's fundamental to know how we will manage this change. One more thing. Our chair, Ursula von der Leyen, in her speech that I mentioned on the State of the Union, says fundamental things, very important for us. Which ones? Well, the idea of what inclusive economy in Europe should be. An economy that has always to be firm on the pillars of rights of society. So, I'm asking you this much. What's your take on the present moment, on this society of ours that is experimenting these asymmetries and symmetries? We want a humane social economy. So the question for you is, according to you, in 2030, how will be our social economy? What is your idea of welfare for the future of European citizens? And I know that you have just or not yet completed the publication of a book that, as I've understood, wants to tackle these themes. The floor is yours. Over to you, Roberto. Thank you so much, Giorgio. True, we share many things, concerns and black swans, but Popper said that we spend our lives in solving problems. So I like problems and issues because there's always a solution for a problem. So we try and come up with smart solutions. True, Ms. von der Leyen often repeats some points. I will summarize 3, which I like. And then I'll make 3 comments. She often talks about investment plans. The theme is just transition for this famous inclusive and prosperous avenue. So investment plans. The second expression she uses often is circular economy. And the video, Roberto, there's a background sound that we are hearing. Is it any better now? Otherwise, I will remove the earpieces. Try and speak. No, we cannot hear you. Please, you use your earpieces again. Put on. Oh, okay. That's perfect. Very, very well. Thank you so much. Is it okay now? Okay. So, as I was saying, I wanted to thank Giorgio because we work together to try and solve some problems. Some organizational and non-organizational problems, the latter being related to people. But this is part of the world of workers and employment. So I believe that Ursula von der Leyen often repeats some points that I would like to summarize. The first is investment plans. Talking about just transition in view of a prosperous and inclusive future, she talks about investments and investment plans. This is the first key expression. The second one is a push towards circular economy. The word circular economy is very useful because it puts together competitiveness on the one hand and the environment on the other hand. And then I'll come to that. And I'll talk about this community, but later on, not now. The video that you've seen at the beginning, according to me, very much explains this. And then the second theme is that of market and society balance. You know, it's very important. We need this balance because growth should be innovative as well as just, fair. And the inequalities that you hinted at the beginning and that the MIT pointed out are a fact. They are clear, and there's a severe challenge with coronavirus. And it tells us that we are having inequalities because, you know, those who are employed and can work now, okay, they earn money. But then there are many jobs that have been curbed, closed down, are not protected. So there is an inequality. And this is one of the major issues that we will have to deal with for a long time. So the point is, what type of welfare should we have? I would say that there are two words that I would like to point out. The first one is transition, and the second one is community. And then I'll close talking about workers and the employment world. So transition. More often than not, Ursula von der Leyen talks about transition. And she very much points out one aspect that is typical of the spirit of our time. I mean, we are going through a transition. And the Latin term at the root of transition indicates a passage from a physical state to another one, like from solid to liquid, from gas to plasma. But I mean, we are transitioning, we are changing something. And along the way, we have to accompany people so that they can transition, so that they can cross the river, as it were, or cross the border. And allow me to make an aside on the theme of politics, because I'd like to end on this. In Brothers All, he has an insight, beautiful one. He says that we have to accompany people to cross the river. And he says charity means that you hold hands with people so that they can cross the river. This is charity. Politics builds bridges. What does it mean? This is political intelligence. I mean, you have to understand that you are crossing a stage. You can accompany people one by one, but politics tell you, wait a minute, hang on, you have to cross a river, so you cannot hold hands with each. You had better build a bridge instead. So that's what we have to do, build bridges and help people cross this very difficult, hard stage. And I believe that this is one thing we have to be mindful of. So, the European pillar on social rights helps us. If we could build a bridge, the first pillar would be this one. You know that this document dates back to 2017. It's not brand new. You have to read it in light of many other documents, because otherwise we would say that it is very labor-oriented, because it mainly focuses on labor access to the labor market, conditions for fair employment, and you name it. But we have to bear in mind that together with the other documents, there is a major concern. And we are talking about 2017. So let alone today, during the pandemic. Imagine what the European Pillar of Social Rights would be today. It means that we have to be mindful of the fact that in this transition, we have to accompany all of those who are losing their jobs or who have many problems to face, because today's welfare raises many problems. Up until 6 years ago, we said, okay, there's one problem like aging, job loss, or can't find a job. But today we know that we are going through a period in which our families are having a number of problems, not just one. AI somehow can help us. True. There's a beautiful book by Harari and many others telling us that social care can be helped or can help, and it talks about the jobs of the future, if we can take up the technological challenge. I mean, aside from income, education, other than that, I can understand people's situation based upon their consumption, what they purchase. I can check online with the smartphone. But Harari said, I can understand a person with a bracelet sensing the heartbeat and telling me what that person is doing in that point in time. And there are many other parameters that I can use, like face recognition. So based upon this, I can understand how the person is feeling and help that person, accompany that person with the technological tools, trying to take action in time. Well, for sure, this is a future scenario, because, I mean, there can be some jobs, and I will name some towards the end of my presentation, which are connected with AI and are facilitated by AI. Many jobs today, old jobs, can be facilitated by AI. It's just, the blue version, as it were, of a number of old jobs. So if I'm capable of taking a person, giving to this person a bracelet, or sense some parameters through sensors to understand how the person is doing, I can take molecular action. I mean, point-in-time actions of that person. So the transition is telling us that we're going through a period in which there will be inequalities, and AI can help us along the way with social care. Is it enough? No, not at all. I believe that one of the main problems of the social pillar is this one. That is to say, it is very individualistic. It is very much based upon individuals and doesn't take an account of the surrounding community. Instead, I'll make an example. Some years ago, we used to say that the social pillar is an extraordinarily important document because it says that the whole EU should follow this track. But the limitation of the social pillar is that, well, it's very labor-oriented and individualistic. I'll make an example, a practical one. In the social pillar, the word work appears 69 times. It's a fact. The word services 14 times, care 13. Very good. The fact that training and education are mentioned 9 times, but the word family doesn't appear or twice. No children, no community mentioned. So we know that what, from the point of view of welfare, helps people be re-included is community. So this means that the transition we are going through can be helped by AI. The definition of rights is very useful. The social pillar is fundamental, but we have to create a community intelligence, a social intelligence, and a very well-developed one as to that, because we need to create, as part of our community, the opportunity so that people can be re-included. And in this sense, training and education are essential, central. So, the welfare of the future, this is Giorgio's question. So, how can we imagine the welfare of the future? Well, this welfare in this phase of transition should be able to work out how to use AI. Should be based upon new professions so that we can prevent, forestall some distress situations, starting from the employment contract, the graduation or educational background, the income and household setup and housing. Based upon all of this, we can foresee the weaknesses of people for the upcoming future. So this design or planning is based upon AI, but must take account of community intelligence and the possible trajectories or destiny of people. And we can do that because we do have information. We have to be able to understand if this information can become a system so that we can figure out, as it were, the destinies of people in a given community, taking account of some parameters. Talking about this parameter, and I'll close on that because I've been speaking for 12 minutes and I have 15. So, to the point of work, there are studies on this. Giorgio, you mentioned the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but I read several surveys in this period, and many say things that are broadly agreed to, i.e. that in the futures of work, there are some beautiful ones, like the website of ADECO says what can be the professions of the future, like energy collector, plant engineer, talent aggregator, wiki writer, market analyst, and you name it. Beautiful, amazing. My wife would love it. And the walker talker, I mean the person who, while walking, talks to you. And so many would like this. There are several new professions, but we have to be able to understand this because some are hugely innovative, but they are the green or blue version of old jobs at times. And they have to do with accompanying people because people are lonely. So all of these jobs, and this is my take-home message for you, have to be put in a context, because one thing is to talk about London or Rome, or Verona, or Catania, or Reggio Emilia. I mean, everything has a context, because the projections on the jobs of the future are not the same everywhere. The context does matter, and quite a lot. And we also have to bear in mind that aside from the projections of the jobs that are close to AI and machines, like you said, Giorgio, and which pay better, there are many other jobs which are, not very well paid, like riders for delivering meals, and those who are forced to stay away from machines, but they, are absolutely essential, because until we have a drone to have a pizza, the riders are useful, and they are low-cost jobs. So these jobs are really very badly paid. So, one last minute for me, what shall I add? Well, for sure, when we think of the jobs of the future, we have to bear in mind all of these surveys, but we have to understand the context of urban life. That is why city managers are so important, and even neighborhoods, because these are creating strong inequalities and asymmetrical challenges. The fundamental challenge, and I close on that, is that we have to work hard on the context and the creation of human capital. I have written this short e-book, and this is the title, Human Capital. Can we see the title? Okay, there we are. Here it is. We believe that today training is a priority, both for work and democracy. This is downloadable from the website of ACLI. It's free of charge. 12 short bullet points, because today we believe that the great challenge is going back to train well-prepared citizens and aware workers. Thank you, Roberto. And the pandemic has shown how fragile we are. And I always say that in this fragility is the beauty of humans, of mankind. And this is important. This fragility has to be accompanied, coached, tutored, helped through practical actions. So, thank you, Roberto, for your speech. Like I said, we have several members of the audience, about 1,600. So starting from this fragility, I think that there are things we can do for Europe in terms of community, European community. This is the key word. So, Chiara, during the pandemic, I've not yet been able to congratulate on you for your new role. You joined this role some months ago, and I believe that maybe, well, this is not the best point in time, but anyway, good luck. Could you share with us what Europe is going to do, and in particular your DG EMPL? This event, we are talking about this, we are talking about training and education, so we're talking about employment, and we talk about things which are your daily stuff. Prior to that, can we have a preview? You're smiling? So, Osnabrück, we know that maybe there will be an important moment for our world, one of the most important ones for the upcoming years. So, two questions. First, what will happen in Osnabrück? And two, can you tell us what your DG employment is going to do, and what about the practical guidance for the actions that we will benefit from in the future? Over to you, Chiara. Thank you so much, Giorgio. For me, it's a great pleasure to be here with you today. I've followed with great interest your welcome address and Roberto's speech. I've decided to change my presentation because you've already touched on the major topics, and in particular the European social pillar. But before that, I want to answer your first question on what will happen in Osnabrück. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic and the constraints, travel constraints, it's not going to be in Osnabrück, but it's going to be in Brussels, Paris, Rome, Stockholm, and you name it. I mean, in all of the European capitals from which the social partners and ministers and training centers will be connected to adopt this very important declaration. What am I talking about? I want to use the words of my Commissioner for Social Affairs and Employment, Nicola Schmidt, who yesterday said that vocational training has always been European treaty since 1957, but only today, or yesterday, eventually we've established a comprehensive framework with recommendations from the Council, with a model to make vocational training future-proof. So, two key documents are about to be adopted or have been adopted. Yesterday, the Council recommendation on vocational training, and Monday, next Monday, the Osnabrück Declaration. This declaration is one that is part of the cooperation that we've always had over the last decades on vocational training, because it's as you know and very well, training is a national remit, and Europe, provides sharing, support, and facilitation to cooperation, but it's a national policy. So this process of informal cooperation is absolutely necessary, and it started in Copenhagen in the 90s. That is why it's called the Copenhagen process. And then periodically, there are political declarations that are shared by member countries and social partners and employment centers and training centers, and the recommendation of the Council, but I'll come to that later on because I want to take a step back and go back to what you and Roberto already outlined. So, as I was saying, the Council declaration offers a strategic view. We also have very clear targets in terms of employment of university graduates and undergraduates. So the target is 92%, and then 60% of students with vocational training have a practical work experience during training. We also have a target on mobility of the young students. This target is 8%, so very practical. And the targets are also about how to change vocational training so that it is future-proof. The Osnabrück Declaration instead provides very operational tasks for the various players, so the member states, the Commission, and training centers, and social partners. So all of them have to put this in place in order to support in the short term the targets and goals, so digital transition, green transition, as well as, and most especially, an inclusive transition. And this takes me back to what was said a moment ago about the social pillar. For us, this is an extraordinary document, unprecedented, true. It dates back to 2017, but this doesn't mean that it's not current, because it is a charter of rights, fundamentally, and that is why its perspective is more individualistic, as it were. But for us, the European pillar, as is mentioned in training plan documents, is our compass. The social pillar is our compass and tells us what we can do to ensure that our society and our economy will leave no one behind. And the extraordinary thing of this document is that, first of all, it is crystal clear. I invite you all, I've heard that we have over 1,000 attendees. I really invite you to read this document. I've made a quick search because I wanted to mention some of the points of the social pillar. And so the extraordinary thing is that this document, like I said, has been adopted by all of the governments of the European Union, regardless of the political orientation. It was adopted by the Parliament, by European Parliament, the Commission, social partners. So it really is a shared document, and I believe that it is a document that most of all of the others represents the difference of Europe vis-à-vis other parts of the world where, unfortunately, inequalities grow, and much more so than here in Europe, and elsewhere people are not so interested in individuals. Instead, we are. I'd like to quote a couple of these rights because, Roberto, you rightfully insisted on employment. And DG Employment is all about employment. Quite obviously, we're very interested in this. We are interested in employment and social affairs. That's our main mission. But the main point of the social pillar is right to access to quality training lifelong. So for this conference, this is very relevant. We also have the active employment policies for sure. But, you know, the community is necessary in order for these rights to be enforced. And one of the principles of the pillar is social dialogue and engagement of workers. So, as a system, and you also rightfully mentioned families, households. Principle number 9 is about work-life balance. And this addresses parents and the persons who take care of their family. And then principle 10 safe and healthy workplace. And, you know, during the pandemic, this is absolutely indispensable. And then childcare and minor support. There are 20 principles, and I really, really invite you to read them all, and carefully so, because they are principles. Like I said, it is a charter of rights. And what we have in terms of tasks in Europe, and especially DG employment, social affairs, is to make these principles real and usable by citizens. And that is why in January this year, one of the first acts of this commission, the first one was the communication on the Green Deal, which is very, very important and at the center of what we're discussing today. But the second act addressed the just transition. So, you've already made this clear, so I won't delve into this, but we're going through a moment of transition, digital and green transition. On top of that, we are pressurized demographically. You know that population is aging, and there will be less and less people working, and they will have to support the elderly. So, fewer active workers who can support inactive persons. So we have to try and broaden the workers' base and become more and more productive to create more wealth with fewer people, so that we can continue to ensure our social well-being. So, we've published this communication, the title of which is A Strong Social Europe for Just and Sustainable Transitions, and it looks at the effects of the twin transitions, and other factors like demography and global competitiveness. And it also addresses how we can ensure that these two transitions don't generate inequalities or don't make them worse. Quite to the opposite, they should be opportunities rather than challenges. And quite obviously, you know, it's both, we know. But I must also say, talking about Italy, that there has been a very recent survey by Union Camere, published on Green Italy, that says that the enterprises of the green economy in Italy are more resilient, and in 2020 they recorded fewer losses in sales compared to the others. They are optimistic more than the others, and they believe that they can recover in a matter of 1 or 2 years the previous levels of activity, I mean, prior to the pandemic crisis. So this confirms that we can see the crisis, or better, the challenges, in two ways. I mean, they are challenges, we have to tackle them, sure, but there are also opportunities that we can take. So, going back to my presentation, well, for the 1st of July, there will be a new package. We have presented a package with two main elements. The first, to support employment for the young. And this takes me back to Roberto, because the title of this package is A Bridge for Employment for the future generations. So the image of the bridge certainly is the idea. I mean, an enabler, something that enables the young to find a job within society, because unfortunately our youngsters today have been hit twice by the crisis. First by the financial crisis, and then by the pandemic. So it's absolutely necessary to help them. And the second element of this 1st July package is the agenda for competencies for Europe. So vocational training and apprenticeship are focused on both of the bullet points of this package, because they are fundamental for both, to support youth employment and more in general, so that also adults can continue to refresh their competencies and skills and abilities throughout their life and adapt to technological and market changes. So it is important to highlight that our activity, both as regards vocational training and as regards apprenticeship, has always been carried out based upon a strong partnership with all of the European partners, including the representatives of training centers. And this takes me back to Giorgio. I'd like to thank you, Giorgio, for your ongoing activity and ongoing presence in Europe. And this makes Europe one of the protagonists of our European vocational training policies. I've already touched on the recommendations in the declaration. One more thing is some novelties. In the main, trying to have a more modular vocational training, because this allows us to also be more reactive to labor market changes. For example, an easy example to understand is the following. If we have stiff, stringent programs, and it takes a 3 or 4 year course to have a diploma as a specialized technician for roofing. I mean, if there is a technological innovation like that of solar energy, what happens? That person has to go through another 3-year program to be qualified, or can we instead have programs for electricity technicians and construction technicians, which are modular, so we can have a new professional diploma for a worker specializing in the installation of solar panels? Well, the answer is that we need a more modular and flexible system. And for us, it is very important to exploit technology. I mean, this crisis hit training across the board in all fields. We all know with our students and children and adults that they have to attend classes from home, but vocational training and apprenticeship have been harsh hit because they are, practical courses. So it's not possible to translate what you do in the classroom or in a lab or in a company into a Zoom conference or similar system. We need new pedagogies. We need, first of all, that both students and teachers have the digital skills and infrastructures required, but also pedagogy should change. It's not just a cut and paste, from an in-person class to an online class. And these are examples of how the recommendation of the Council of Vocational Training and the Osnabrück Declaration want to transform vocational training and help it move towards the future. Other elements that I can share, and Giorgio, interrupt me if I'm behind schedule. So, one is the relaunch of the European Alliance for Apprenticeship. It's been there since 2013, and it wants to promote apprenticeship as a form of learning. We've relaunched it in July to try and renew the commitment or the pledges undertaken by businesses to provide these opportunities to the youngsters. And we've strengthened the green element as well as the digital element. To be able to set up a system of support to help enterprises operate this way and exchange knowledge and good practices and have information on funding and grants and so on and so forth. We also have a very recent initiative. It dates back to the 10th of November as part of the European Week for Vocational Training. We've launched a pact for competencies and skills. It's not only for the youngsters, but it's an addition to our other activities. So it aims to the adults who need to continue to learn, to adapt to the new employment systems and production processes. So it is a pact that puts together the businesses individually or through partnerships, like along the value chain. So they are connected to vocational training centers and national and regional authorities so that they can develop targeted vocational training activities and help the adult population improve and increase their skills. And finally, there's a tool. Sorry for interrupting you. You're behind schedule. You should wrap up if you don't mind. Oh, fantastic, fantastic. I've said all I wanted to say in terms of our system, so I invite you, since I mean all of this is public information, so I invite you to read all about the social pillar and the agenda for skills that details all of these initiatives, and as soon as it is published, also read the Osnabrück Declaration and the Council recommendation. Thank you, Chiara, thank you so much. Right now, on YouTube, we have 1,800 people. I don't know how many more we have on the platform. So a huge audience. Like Chiara said, I'm proud to say that EVTA is one of the entities that have contributed towards, and I mean, together with the other 4 major European associations, has contributed towards drawing up this document that is going to be signed next Monday. And I will invite you all to read it. Now, Francesco Mondora. Hi, Francesco. Hi, Giorgio. So, why is Francesco here with us? Well, when I started to figure out this event, I called a friend of mine, Alessandra Smettini. She's a nun, and Alessandra shares with us work in the School of Civil Economy because she's been there since the beginning with us. And Alessandra today has a burdensome task, i.e., that of taking care of many economic issues of the Holy See. And when I asked her, she said the right person is Francesco. I called Francesco. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know him. And Alessandra instead was right. Why? Because you, Francesco, are the future today, here and now. You are the future of what we imagine. You are the future, and I'm saying so in terms of a fantastic idea of business. We have figures. I mean, successful leaders and teams have to be emotionally successful and socially successful. They need these skills. They need to master these skills, even though they have to bear up with the stress of managing empathy and teamwork. Goldman told us a long time ago, but this still applies. But you've done this, all of it. Everyone says so. So I'm asking you, in the next 15 minutes, tell us, because you're a very good storyteller. Tell us what you've done and tell us about this emotionally friendly workplace. How do you create it? Is it true that it works, or is it just a nice academic article? Is it real? Over to you, Francesco. Oh, beautiful food for thought. It's an honor for me to be here with you today. I have reviewed my presentation because I thought I would say some things, but the previous speakers have been so inspirational to me that I've decided to make some changes to my presentation. First of all, Well, I established several companies, and then I've sold them. And coming from, my previous experiences as a worker, because my parents were workers, blue collars, so I've only been aware of the wrong suffered. Me and my brother Michele decided that we wouldn't do this. So it's an emotional friendly version of business. Right now, the organization of which I'm going to talk to you about today is about 70 headcount plus 30 independent contractors, and we are a group, a team. We've done this to grow our ideas. I think that underlying any decision, there is culture. This is what we have to build. This is my job. I build cultures. Cultures underlying these ideas, because these cultures or mindsets, if you will, can practically define a work environment where people can evolve. So when I talk about people, I also talk about their emotions and social and emotional sphere through their job, and this is very important. On average, a person spends 60 to 80,000 hours working during life. So unless there is an ideal ground at work so that persons, workers can really evolve rather than just earn money, well, we're going to have a problem, because otherwise this doesn't work. So it's, the previous speakers have really been inspirational, because everything depends upon the context and also the nature of words. I've studied the etymology of the sense of work. Look at the etymology of the word lavoro, trabajo, work. Interestingly, work is a sphere that comes from labor, fatigue, suffering. Instead, in French, travail comes from torture. So it's even worse, a sacrifice. In English, instead, or in ancient German, Werk means finalizing something. So every people incarnates a deep meaning of work. Interestingly, based upon my experience in my organization, the organization I serve, I can tell you this much. We should understand why we have organizations. There is a great movement with benefit companies in Italy, because this would be a substantial, noble reason for organizations to exist. From this foundation, we should try and build an organization that somehow has in itself the possibility to allow people to be active and to declare their intentions, including, basic ones like removing plastics from rivers, through to complex ones like yesterday it was the day against violence against women. I mean, we make software, so inside software we should have the notion of non-violent software. I mean, it's an extremely high-flying theme and very complex one as well. So the organization or the business is a living organism and becomes a platform where people go to live, to have an experience, to improve and grow. It's an attitude, a cultural attitude. It's a mindset. So we have to change some of the rules inside organizations. If you look around, you can see that one of my mantras is break the rules, the broken rules, to be more precise. So interestingly, we have to understand if these rules apply now, especially now, because this is a dystopic moment. I'll make an example. Like in a hierarchy, it doesn't make sense if we're all headed together to something that is far away from the common good, because we have to do something for the common good. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So, how can we encourage this type of community? So, the first thing I told you is that we have decided to not have an organizational or hierarchical tree, because it doesn't work. There are many organizations around the world that are flat and work well. And then we have to push people to have experiences, to mature during experiences. Just think that we come from a culture that was one in which errors penalize, and you have to hide your mistakes. Instead, we should derive advantages from errors. So we want to change this. We don't want this situation in which if you make a mistake, you are the culprit. Instead, you can learn from mistakes. So we have introduced collective practices to celebrate mistakes. We celebrate mistakes. We've decided to say, dear colleague, you made a mistake, we can celebrate. And if you're successful, we can celebrate as well. And interestingly, and this takes me back to culture. So we have to push people to say that we can try and be ourselves. Remember that when a person enters an organization, completely loses, so to speak, some reference points and individual features. You know that you're not allowed to talk about politics and spirituality at work. You cannot talk about your feelings and emotions. I cannot say, no, I'm not signing this agreement because it's so bad, and so on and so forth. So I cannot be myself. I cannot be a woman when I'm at work, and so on and so forth. Instead, a working person should go beyond this and support himself or herself. And we should allow people to decide not to sign an agreement if this is the case. I mean, this may seem to be naive, but it's not, because this builds a supportive community that helps workers. So the business in this way moves alongside its workers and helps these persons, the workers. Because everyone in this community serves the common good. So we've also tried to understand how to interact with the customers and suppliers. And we tell them why we are doing this and what for. So we tell them, we do this because we are saving a certain amount of trees, or we're eliminating plastic, or we are saving water. These are easy to understand examples. Quite obviously, we also have to understand that by doing so, we create a ground, a common ground, where people are people, persons are persons, and they can act as adults, make mistakes, and so on and so forth. Hence, we declare how we work, and we declare how, in terms of relations, we interact with the others. And we do so mutualistically and based upon solidarity. There's a purpose in a company, there are values, workers embrace these values, but also defend their values through the organization. And this means that potentially we can make the next step and improve ourselves. We've started to measure our criteria, including the level of happiness, the level of stress, eustress and de-stress. And we have found out, and I mean, I don't care about figures, but what I always look at is trends. And we found that if we continue to build a meaning for doing things, and if we change the idea that work is fatigue, we can say that through work a person evolves and grows as a whole and as a member of society and as a spiritual and economic being. So if we do this, trends improve. And then there's an interesting thing, and this is a study that I've done over the years. I mean, I started 18 years ago to study this. And interestingly, as I was saying, EBITDA improve. And I always say so. This is not scientific data, but the EBITDA is proportion to how this common ground and culture and mindset improves for people. So essentially what we are trying to do, what I am trying to do in my organization is a humanization of our workers. Organizations are living beings where people have to be able to evolve and grow and improve. They have to be rewarded if they evolve, and the others who can evolve must be helped evolve with great solidarity. And this is very important, because we have to ask these questions at a certain point in time during our life. So we give 80,000 hours of our life to an organization, and these hours, working hours, can become a bold action, something courageous and virtuous, a good practice for all. We are supported by political rules and by all of these bridges that we don't see. Like, for example, we've decided to set up a solidarity fund in the company to donate allowances. Or, for example, if there are colleagues who need to stay at home to take care of a person, you can donate your working hours. And we found that this bridge was already in existence, so you didn't have to do much. You could help people, and in practice, you only have to make this possible and formalize it. Not many people are using this bridge, but some are, so it's a possibility. If you understand that as part of the business community, that is a living organism, you can act attuned with the others. Okay, you can trigger solidarity, and there are many ways of using this solidarity. So we already have many bridges. They are there. Use them. This is my invitation for all of you, including the young and the adults. See the future as, you know, the present that we borrow from someone who will come next. If someone gives me a chair, I will have to give it back clean and tidy. If a bank gives money to me, lends money to me, well, I will have to give the money back. So this is the world, the earth I'm living in. If I'm doing business Today, with today's people, I must be aware of the fact, and workers and all of the others and stakeholders have to be aware of the fact that this is something we borrow and will have to give back to the next generations. So very respectfully, we have to do this. And to close, I can tell you that we have to shift away from a too rational attitude to a courageous attitude, connected to the heart, whereby people are more humane, though using technology. And with that, I'm done. I've used up all of my 15 minutes. So I've told you what is vital for me. Thank you so much. Beautiful presentation. Thank you personally and also on behalf of all. Now, Demetrio Albertini. There you are. Hi, Demetrio. Good morning. You're a beautiful person. I would like to say that, well, we all know you as a great soccer player, but I've been fortunate enough. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 years ago, but we were in Helsinki 1 year ago. Okay, 1 year ago. I met you. You had been appointed Italian ambassador during the EVTA week. So, Italian Ambassador, European Vocational Skills Week. And I'm telling you, Demetrio, and I want everybody to know that Demetrio is fantastic, so heartful, so beautiful. I'm proud that our country is represented by you as an ambassador. This is a problem because I tend to call you so many times and you're so busy, but you always find time with a very short notice while you're working elsewhere. So thank you for joining us at Job Orienta. So I'm telling you, I'm grateful. And I'm proud of having you as an ambassador because you are so focused on the young and adults and those who are in need. It's beautiful, really beautiful. I want to talk with you about some aspects of training. We know that in sports, most especially team sports, but also individual sports, you may have problems, like at work. Some are happy, others are not. Some have had a rough day, others want to act alone, but if there are too many soloists, you have no teamwork. And this applies to many other cases. So, here, in Veneto, a study is being carried out together with Ca' Foscari University, and they want to measure the fact that these sports skills can be translated to the workplace somehow. And I believe that we will prove this, but we already know that it's true. I'm not asking you if you agree, because I know you do agree. But I found out that you are very hands-on, very practical, and we in training are practical. So how can you do this? How is it possible for us to use these major sports skills in life, not just in the workplace? So do we have to do more sports? Do we have to change programs? Do we have to change our training plans? What is your idea? What is your take? And thank you for joining us today once more. Thank you, Giorgio, and thank you all. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Right now, I'm in Coverciano because I'm the president of the technical sector of the Federation, Soccer Federation, and despite difficulties, I have to be present here as well. So, this is a historic venue. One day I want to invite you all of you, because it would mean that we've left the crisis behind. I want you to breathe the home of soccer in Italy. And not only that, it's much more than that. Very well said. I stopped being a professional soccer player 15 years ago, and you know very well, as you said, that you know where you're in the locker room or on the pitch, you learn a lot. And I can grant you that all of those rules, I'm using them. They're the same. Now I'm an executive, I use the same rules as I did on the soccer pitch. In order to have a team, the first thing you have to do is to have the rules of the 4C. Knowledge, C in Italian. Anyway, knowledge, discussion, because at the end of the day, you have to share and believe. So these 4 rules are essential because first you have to know your mates, you have to discuss and understand the members of the other teams. And there may be inequalities in soccer and sports as well, and you have to somehow accept inequalities, but you also have to aim for inclusion because diversity means that you can achieve more goals. Thirdly, you have to share. You have to share a goal. And if you do so, like I said yesterday, you can share your passion. And that's important. You have to use your passion during training or when doing sports or when working. And after sharing this goal, the most important thing is believe in what you do. A great coach, but I fought with that person, Simeone. I played against him in Italy and with the national soccer team in a book, a biography. I don't know if it's been translated in Italian because it's in Spanish. He says, it's not the best who wins. You win if you believe most in what you're doing. So training is as important as your passion. You also touched on an important theme, that of errors or mistakes or defeats, errors. Francesco talked about mistakes and errors that can become educational errors. I mean, lessons to learn from. In my career, I won 2 Champions Leagues, Intercontinental Cups, Italy Cup, other cups, a European Championship and World Championship. I don't know if you know, but these are all the finals that I've lost. And there are so many that I've lost. And how can you move on? How can you start again if you've been close to the goal, but not quite there? Well, first of all, use your enthusiasm. And sports teaches you to do so. And then don't focus on issues and problems, but focus on the context. Because when we talk about problems, it's as if saying, okay, I'm doomed to fail. Instead, if you talk about the context, you always find a way to adapt to what you're going through. So change, accept change, adapt to change. If you've lost, something was missing. Some typically say, I was that close. It was bad luck. No, I don't think it's bad luck. I very much focus on work and team, not on luck. And this has allowed me to move on and win many cups after losing many others. So in a team, every locker room has rules, and these rules are important and can change from time to time, from venue to venue. But when you have rules, they are to be respected by best players. We are talking to the young, so I'm not saying that you should be punished. No. So this applies to talented people and less talented, less important people, even though every person is important. And I always talk about, how shall I say, three main ingredients: loyalty, respect, and like I said before, sharing. Loyalty, because it's better to have around you loyal people rather than the best players who are not loyal. Second, respect. When it comes to sport, we talk about respecting the opponents. I always talk about respect for teammates, for the members of your team, the coach, the teacher, the family, the institutions. If you are respectful, at the end of the day, even though you don't share some aspects, you can discuss, you can engage, you can interplay. And this leads to sharing, because at the end of the day, you will learn this in life. There's always a mediation, a trade-off, and also winning teams have to mediate to move on. My take-home message has to do with my philosophy of life. It's always been this. And it's a sentence that I repeat very often when I try and transfer my skills and experiences. I've always believed I'm an ordinary boy who's done something special, rather than a special boy who's done something ordinary. What does it mean? It means that I've always been happy for achieving goals when working. The assumption being that I am an ordinary boy, I've had to conquer achievements. I also have two young children around your age, so at times I discuss with some boys, and they always put first the notion of personality. But at times this is confused with presumption. So, sports has been important for me. I've always focused on merits. You don't have to cheat. No cheating, no way. If you're first, it's because you're first. No cheat. So please, don't you mix things up. Personality is based upon humility. If you are humble, you can work and can achieve great things.
Grazie Demetrio.
Thank you, Demetrio.
Sono le 12:30.
It's 12:30. I would like to wrap up with a couple of thoughts. We've started this event with a video to tell you people's stories, because training is people's stories. You saw at the beginning people who meet, people at work, but still people. We have learned, but we knew, but we've learned even more what the fragility of these people is. We are seeing this in the pandemic, but this is the beauty of mankind. Talking about the challenges of the future, there is a very clear thing to bear in mind. It's all about skills, competencies, abilities, but this is enshrined emotions and feelings, and these are key requirements in the future, and they've always been with us in our history and will continue to stay with us. Social skills, there are different intelligences, as we know. So I'd like to conclude by saying that at the end of the day, we always have to be mindful of this. And this is important in training. We have to be focused on persons all around. I'd like to thank all of the listeners. I'd like to thank our speakers. And with that, I'm done. And I invite you to stay attuned with the other events that we are organizing. Thank you all. And goodbye.